Okay, guys, next subtopic is the government's liability in relations to military personnel. When it related uh, to the omissions or acts committed by armed forces. The main sections here is section 14 of the Government's Proceedings Act 1956. It provides that neither the government nor the member of the armed forces who caused the injury or death of any other member will be liable for any acts or omissions causing death of or personal injury to a member of the armed forces while on duty. So, what we can scrutinize from this provision is that the governments and the member of armed forces are not liable if they cause injury or death to any other members of armed forces while on duty. Cik note while they performing the duty. However, these protections, okay, is only qualified if they are able to fulfill two conditions under this section. So what are the two conditions? First, the person's disease or injured was on duty as a member of the force, or if not on duty, was on some premise or vehicle used at the relevant time for the purpose of the force. So we must prove that the injured party or the person diseased was a member of a force. Okay, they must uh, performs their duty as a member of the force, or even not performing the duty. Okay, he was on some premise or vehicle used at the relevant time for the purpose of the force. Okay, this is very important. For the purpose of the force means that based on their employments. Okay, and the second conditions, the Minister of Finance certified that his suffering or death would be treated as attributable to service for the purpose of entitlement to an award under service regulations. So once the Minister of Finance issue a certificates, this is called as necessary certificates, will be issued by the Minister of Finance upon death of the member of armed force. Okay, then the governments and the member of armed force who caused the injury just now will not be liable under any acts or omissions. Okay, take note, these two conditions must be fulfilled. Okay, for example, you may refer to the case of Chu Fahfat against Cik Ros bin Othman. In this case, the action for damages arose out of an injury caused to an army personnel as a result of a collision between a military lorry and civilians lorry. Both the driver and the injured person were on duty as members of the force. So they fulfill the first requirement. And then the Minister of Finance issued the necessary certificate under section 14. So the second requirement also fulfilled. And after the certificate was issued, neither the government nor the lorry driver could be held liable for the plaintiff injury action just dismissed. So in this case, okay, member of armed forces would not become liable, as well as the governments, once these two conditions are fulfilled. Let's say if one of the conditions is not fulfilled, so the governments will be liable. The officer and the governments will be liable. Alright, so what we can conclude from this topic is that, okay, in order for us to take actions against the governments in contract and in thought, okay, it is very important to highlight the procedures, okay, the requirements, okay, because if we fail to fulfill these requirements, okay, based on these two statutes, then we cannot claim against the governments, right? So people, as a public, okay, we must be aware of the provisions of the law so that their claims will not be rejected by the court, and also to avoid people from taking advantage of the situation just for the sake to get high compensations from the governments. Okay, if you have any questions, then you can ask me in our group WhatsApp, or you can personally PM me. Thank you guys for your great attentions. Assalamualaikum.